You know, I think you should all chime in anytime you feel like it. In fact, let's.
One of your first memories.
How youngest thing.
One of your first memories.
Okay, guys, just go ahead and do that there. Okay, it's recording.
Okay.
Tell us about your life.
What's one of your earliest memories, Uncle Earl?
My earliest memory? I remember the first snow I ever saw, and that's all I remember about it, playing in the snow. It was, we were living in my grandfather's place. All the Cooleys lived in a row. I mean, down the road, I think they call it Cooleyville. There's my aunt was the first, then my uncle, my other uncle, grandpa, another uncle, and the rest of them were in Singer.
And that was in DeRidder?
That was in Singer.
Oh, in Singer, right.
Singer was the town closest to us. And my grandfather had a store there, and then later on my uncle took the store over, and the other uncle that lived in Singer was who lived to be 92, just recently died. He was always in politics.
Oh.
He was a politician if there ever was one.
Did he run for any offices and get them?
Yeah, he was police jury for, I don't know, half his life, I think. And we moved to Singer when I must have not been over 5 years old. And I remember the first Christmas there, we were adding on to our house, and they had the rough flooring on, and I got a red fire truck that had batteries in it that ran the headlights. Oh. And all Christmas Day and Christmas night, I stayed up out there on those flooring, running my truck around till the batteries all burned out, and all the batteries I could find I used. But I thought that was the neatest gift.
How old were you then?
I don't think I was probably over 6 then. I wasn't going to school.
Oh.
And then I think the next thing I can remember is that Aline, the floor out there, which I had it all covered and everything, but it was rough lumber, and she got a splinter about 2 inches long run in her foot, and she was just, she couldn't talk yet. I mean, she was just a little girl, and we were all trying to get that splinter out of her finger, out of her foot, and so finally Mom said, well, we just have to hold her down. And I can remember I picked her out of the crib and brought her over the crib, and boy, she was screaming to the top of her voice, and whether she knew what was going to happen or not, but she hollered, Mom got the splinter out and all that. But I can remember her calling till they put her back in the thing, turn me loose, turn me loose, turn me loose.
Who was that, Earl?
To the top of her voice.
Who was that?
And
Aline.
And then that same year, she had asthma real bad. And my dad traded that place for one where we live now, the old home place. And it had a great, big, huge house on it with it wasn't double wall construction. It was just 2x4s was up and down. You could see cracks right through the side. And Eileen got, she had asthma and she was very sick. And I can remember for about 3 days us packing her, walking her from the full length of that house back and forth, and almost every breath I knew that she was going to die. The whole family were lined up praying for her, and we just knew she wasn't going to make it because she just couldn't hardly breathe. And she was so weak till she slept a couple, 2 or 3 days after that.
You remember that picture with the kids with the goat in front of the cart that you had? Who was in that picture with the goat? Was that you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You've changed.
I think so.
Yeah. That was,
Yeah, our grandmother lived in Marshall, Grandpa Greg, and we would go up there once every 1 or 2 years, and we were up there one year, and this man with the goat came by taking pictures. So I was 3 and Earl was 5.
Oh,
So I was
that was
born
a cute
in
picture.
1925. He was born in 1923. But what I remember, if you were talking about the earliest thing that we could remember, I can't remember too much, but I knew that something bad was happening. I can remember that. But I had got a watermelon seed in my nose or throat or something, and it was hung up and I couldn't breathe. And we lived about 12 miles, wasn't it, out from DeRidder. And I don't know how, 5 miles from Cena?
yeah.
3 or 4. But I know that Daddy had to borrow the money from Grandpa, and we went on a train. How we got there, I don't know. We went to New Orleans, and that was a big thing in that day, because the doctor in DeRidder couldn't get the watermelon seed out. And Mama said that was about the only time she heard Daddy cried, and he would hold me, and if I coughed one way, it would, I could breathe, but another I couldn't, and so we got to New Orleans where they got it out. And I just remember something terrible happening as far as the first time that I can remember. But I don't remember the snow, Earl, but you were 2 years older than me.
It snowed in Louisiana, though.
It does.
Yeah.
It does every once in a while. but
I saw 2 snows in all my life down there, and that was one of them.
Oh, wow.
And of course, when the snow started the second time, I was probably 12 or 14. Boy, what hunting that was. I hunted all that day and the next day, and then it was gone. But I shot rabbits and squirrels, and you could just follow their tracks everywhere, And so that was great for a kid like me.
Well, I remember when we moved to Senior, and when we went to school, we walked, I think, and I'll have to tell this on Maxine. First year when she went to school, she got a report card, but she was born in July, and she started in September, whenever school started. But she failed that first year, and I remember walking down home and her just so mad, and she tore that report card up. And I don't know what happened after that, but
I don't remember that, but I do remember that I wasn't. I think I was 4 years old instead of 5 when they started school. But anyway, I did, and I guess I must have been pretty mean,
we were all mean.
ornery or something, because
Not me.
I
No,
didn't get to stay in class very much,
she didn't.
and I was tomboyish. I was a tomboy. Then when we got older, sure enough, I was tomboy because Earl was away from home and I did the boys' work,
Like what?
like plowing and tending to the animals.
How many animals did you guys have?
Oh, we had milk cows and we had horses and hogs and
Chicken.
chickens.
Did you have sheep?
Yeah.
Daddy had a lot of the whole Cooley clan had a lot of sheep. My grandfather was rich with mutton, sheep. They shared them every year and sold the wool. And that's when we got our money, because during the other time of the year we kind of borrowed money from the bank till sharing time was over. But I did ride in the woods a lot to gather the sheep, and I helped share the sheep and stomp the wool and that kind of thing. And then plow in the field and everything. Pick cotton, pick beans. We picked beans and peas and stuff, potatoes before we went to school, so Daddy could sell it that day, And then we'd come in the evening and do the same thing. So that was, of course, we were older then. But then when I was in the 8th grade, Daddy had blood poison in his appendix ruptured.
Oh.
And he almost died. So part of the time I didn't get to go to school because we had to have crop, and we had Earl was in service. Earl, was you in service then?
No, that was just before
Before he went to service. Well, Earl worked with sheep too. Mrzelle was a little bit more tender. She did.
I didn't do much outside work.
she washed lots of dishes.
She had
Done lots of cooking.
She always had a lot of headaches.
I fell off the carport. I don't know how old I was, and I must have got a dent in my head. Mama started to the doctor with me, but she got to my uncle's store and gave me a Coke or whatever, and I guess I revived. But I always had headaches if I got out in the sun. They didn't believe me, but it was true. But I did.
She had headaches when she didn't have headaches.
No, but I that's true. I really did.
She
Every
has a
time I
soft
get
spot
home.
in her head like a baby now.
Oh, wow.
But
So I guess she did, but
But
I
we
didn't
all-
believe her. And
we
every
all
time
were.
I got a chance, I whipped her.
she did. She could whip me in the deal.
Because she wouldn't do anything. I thought she'd get the better end of the deal.
I washed dishes and cooked and tended
So
to
did I
the little
wash
babies that had the diapers, Earl was the oldest. I was next. Maxine next. Well, there were 9 of us. Of course, I was already married when Lou was born, but
Right, but you changed a lot of
I
diapers.
changed a lot of
Washed
diapers
a lot of
But let
diapers.
me tell you, in
Who was
those days
after
you didn't
you?
have diapers. You had rags and towels.
Oh, right.
And when we came in from school in the evening, Mama had a tub out on the porch full of nasty diapers, and we had to wash those things. That was my job, not hers. But I mean, I got the dirty end of the deal, but she really was sick. She really wasn't healthy.
I'm still sick.
And I'm still petting her.
And she's
But I'm still making it.
that's right.
Yeah,
But we too, like Nancy, our Christmas was pretty much like hers. But Aunt Inez is the one who always saw that we had a gift at Christmas.
Oh.
She sent us, I remember one year she sent us China dolls.
Oh.
And we would never had a Christmas if it hadn't been for Aunt Inez and Uncle Jim, I believe, gave Mama money for us to have gifts.
Now, you're saying Uncle and Inez and Uncle Jim, were they your moms?
Mom's
Mom's
brother and
son.
sister.
Okay, so they
And
were your
Aunt Inez
moms.
was a baby girl. I guess Buford was.
His mother, Steve's mother, and Inez.
Right, but I just didn't know if they were your dad's or your
No,
mom.
my mother's.
Okay. How many kids were in her family? Do you remember?
5.
5, I believe.
There were 5 and what,
Inez, Viola, Jim, Buford,
Bill,
Bill. There was another woman. Was there?
Viola, do you guess?
Yeah, not Viola. I think there was 5.
and that was the Gregs?
That was the Greg side, Mama's side.
Okay. And what was your mom's name?
Cooley. No,
First
Mom
name?
was Greg.
Beatrice.
Beatrice. Okay,
Beatrice.
that's right. That's right.
And Daddy had
There was 9 of them.
9 of them.
2 girls.
7 girls and 2 boys.
In our family,
So
there's
3
7
girls
of us.
and 7 boys.
Whatever. Too many to count. What was
Yeah,
it?
there was Aunt Sal, Aunt Mary, and
Ain't it?
Aunt Nat. That was the girls. And then there was 6 boys, I guess. Neil, Rob,
Burl,
Burl.
Ghost.
and
And that whole
was 6
Cooley
boys.
clan, about half of them were alcoholics.
On your dad's side.
Daddy's brothers. Uncle Burl and Uncle Rob Uncle Dose drank a lot. I don't know if they were
Oh,
alcoholics, but they drank a lot.
Oatleys.
And Uncle Ira was not he didn't drink, and I don't know if Uncle Dempsey did, but
No, I don't think.
Uncle who?
Uncle
Yeah.
Dempsey.
But anyway, we had a hard time growing up, but we had a good Christmas. That's all. Like
We
you
had a good
said,
mama cook.
everybody else was in the same. You know,
We didn't know
nobody
we
had
were
any money.
poor.
Actually, we were
yeah.
average because
Right.
all the people that lived around us didn't have as much as we did, or no less, more than we did. But Mama was a good cook, and she made all of our clothes. I mean, and you look at some of the pictures we have, you would not know that she made them. And they didn't have patterns like, we have today.
So what did you cook? What did you cook?
Everything. But
Biscuits, chicken.
Daddy used to go hunt rabbits at night, and I would have to go with him. And I thought it was a good deal, but I always carried the rabbits. That was my job. I thought it was a good deal.
But we had pork, we had mutton when
Yeah,
they
we
killed the
had-
mutton. So we didn't suffer for
No, Mama
nothing to
canned.
eat.
We canned everything. But we had beans and we had potatoes, and we had a lot of peas and corn. We didn't go lacking for food.
We had
They preserved everything that was, that you could put up. If she'd go get together at pears or people that had pears and share them around the community, and if somebody had extra, well, Mom would still put them up, and if she didn't use them, she'd give them to somebody, but she's always sharing food to somebody. And
Do you guys miss that? I mean, people don't do that nowadays.
No, but Mama, if anybody was sick, my daddy's mother was kind of like that. If somebody was sick, they would go get her, and they would put, if they had a sore throat or something, they put mole's feet around their neck, or kind of funny things. But then Mama, anybody in our community that got sick would come after Mama, and she would doctor
Now, your dad's
mother.
mother, was she Indian?
No, Mama.
Oh, the Greggs.
The Greggs. No, Mama's was a noble.
but she
It was on my mama's side that was the Indian.
So her mother was an Indian.
Way
a
down.
fourth of an Indian.
She was a fourth of an
Mama,
Indian.
I believe, was a 16th.
No, we're 32nd. So
Mama would be 16th. But anyway,
my grandma was a midwife, and I am the only one that did not have a doctor. Earl had a doctor. As it was, we live in Glenmore, and Daddy had taken a job at a sawmill there, and he was born in Glenmore. And then Daddy wanted him, Grandpa Cooley wanted him to come back home and help him with the sheep or whatever. And he went home, and then I was born 2 years later in a little house close to them. But I didn't have a doctor. And it's on my birth certificate, grandma, a midwife, it said.
She delivered you. Your grandmother. Your
Grandma
grandmother
Cooley?
My
delivered
grandmother
you.
Cooley. Well, in fact, they would call her, she would go to different places.
Okay, so the Coolies raised sheep,
Yes.
and the Greggs had a store.
No, the Coolies had a store. The Greg's mama met Grandpa Greg. He worked on the railroad, and they had a railroad at that time that went through there, and they had I believe they had a sawmill there too, didn't they?
that sawmill.
little sawmills.
And so that's where Mama met him,
Oh, okay.
and that's how the Greg's. He was working on the sawmill, and she met Grandpa Greg, and so we didn't know anything much about the Greg's.
But since Lou has gone to Florida, we found where Mama's mother and daddy and aunts and uncles are all in Florida. And Lou's made trips down there because she went into the geology stuff and took pictures of where they were buried and stuff. So,
And there's still about 5 or 6 of Uncle Jim's children down in
Yeah.
Florida.
you have a lot of kinfolk in Florida still.
Around
Cousins.
Orlando and
Well, okay, let's see. Let's get on up a little bit further. When we moved up on the big house there on the side of the road where you was talking about Aline.
Chinaberry trees.
Daddy built a new house, had a new house, and had a lot of chickens in it, raised chickens.
Well, he actually started raising the chickens before he built the house. He knew where the house was going to be, so they
Had a chicken farm up there.
they built 2 big chicken houses up there, and they wanted to get 5,000 head of chicken. And they finally did, but for a year or so till they got a well dug, now this was, I can date this because this was in 1936. Grandpa had just died, and the boys were shifting the sheep around. They didn't even, I don't think they even had any idea of how many sheep they had.
Oh,
And so Dad decided he'd get out of the sheep business since Grandma had died. But when Grandpa died, they didn't divide up anything. They just went right on just like it was. And Grandma, they gave her half and divided the rest of it up between them for a few years. I think it was 2 or 3 years they did that. Well, when Grandma died, which I think was 35, Dad decided that he would get rid of get out of the sheep business and go into the chicken business.
oh goodness.
And hog
And
business.
so he bought a new 36 Ford pickup, and I can remember wasn't very big. Let's see, what would I be, 13, 12 or 13? Anyway, I would draw 4 barrels of water every evening right after school and take it around the 40 acres up to the chicken house and water the chickens and leave what water we had left. A few days I had to go back and get some more water, but I remember 4 barrels of water is a lot to draw with a 4 or 5 gallon bucket. And then the hill was real sandy, so I kept going further out all the time and then coming back to keep from having to go straight up the hill. And sometimes the old pickup would spin in that sand and stuff, and it was aggravating. And
He's probably putting it to the floor too, you know.
I'll probably spin a wheel or two.
And you were 13 or 14 doing all that?
He was probably 13 or 14.
But soon after he bought the pickup, I was driving all over, taking the eggs to town and picking up the feed. And he had a guy hired that just lived there, a little house built for him, and
Pete Pearson.
huh?
Pete Pearson.
That wasn't the last guy, but he had about 3 or 4 people while he had the chicken. But the 2 buildings were built separate. They were built kind of a side by side, and they had covered over where they came together, and run the water off down the other way, and they caught a little bit of it, but most of the time, when it rains in Louisiana, it pours. And somehow or another, whoever he had feeding the chickens had set up all the troughs right under the center of those 2 buildings, and they got mold in the food.
Oh,
And then it all got contaminated, and the chickens molted. They just lost all their feathers. 5,000 chickens. And it killed about half of them. About half of them died, and the rest of them lost all their feathers, and you didn't get any eggs, and still having to feed those chickens. So It didn't turn out to be a very good business. It told Dad wouldn't have hardly a chicken around that you couldn't eat.
But we walked down to the road to go to school, and Calvin's daddy was the bus driver, but then our dad bought the school bus from him, so then we didn't have to walk anymore. But we would have to clean the school bus up, and you remember how it was? It had just a little seat in the middle that they could sit on both sides, just straight. And then the seats on the side, a lot different from what they are today.
And so is that the one that you were driving when that Nancy met you? Uncle?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
No, it was
TC's
the one
bus.
TC's bus.
Oh, okay, TC.
TC's
And
bus.
my Jimmy just lived across the way.
They called it Cooley Town, Dozier Street.
Cooley Hotel, nothing to eat.
No, that didn't go right. Anyway, it was Cooley.
Slaydon Town,
Slaydon
Dozier
Town, Dozier Street, Cooley Hotel, nothing to eat. That was what it was saying. But anyway, we all grew up.
Was that a rhyme you guys said at school?
That was the whole saying for the whole community.
Yeah, right. She married a Slaydon, I married a Rice. Calvin lived right across the creek.
So you met them as children?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
We grew up at school. And Nancy
Didn't have too many boys or too
To
many
choose
girls
from,
in our
yeah.
community.
But I guess Earl was driving
And-
the bus for Nancy,
Well, I had the school board had okayed me to drive. I think it was the year before I graduated, when it was about the 10th grade. They had okayed me to drive for the Singer School, and I drove our bus every once in a while. When something was bad, Dad couldn't do it, or he couldn't get nobody to. I'd drive it. So there was 3 buses right in our area, within 2 or 3 miles of each other. So TC Dozier, there was a bunch of Doziers on the other bus, but TC he had one brother, and he was a lot younger. So the DeRidder School District okayed me to drive for TC, just to relieve him. And so that's basically where I met Nancy, was when I drive the bus. That was my first meeting. Wasn't sweet on her, or I didn't know she was sweet on me, but I remember the first time or two it had rained and it was so muddy, and TC had told me that when you go through that spot, make all the kids get off the bus and walk, because you hit it hard and then you put the kids back home. So I remember that much on the one trip that I made for him, but
We had no paved roads either. It was all
no,
gravel.
all
Dirt, red hills, slick red hills. But your mama had, when she's 2 years old, she had typhus fever, which is a case of polio. And that was a hard time, too. She almost didn't make it either. But I rode a horse a lot. And so that at night, when she got sick, I had to get on that horse and go get help. And Jimmy, that's where I went, because he could drive a car. He went and borrowed somebody else's car and come here to the doctor. But we all grew up.
What would you do without all the cell phones today, the telephones that we did not have? TV, we didn't have.
We didn't have
phones,
electricity.
We didn't have electricity.
no
Plumbing.
washing machine.
No washing machines.
That was another thing we did. We washed with a rub board, and we had a big wash pot out in the yard that we put fire under and put the clothes in it and, stuck them.
Punch the clothes.
Bunch of clothes.
But then I was the first one to get married. I married in 42 in October, and
How did you met Calvin?
well, on the
Kids.
bus, on kids. You know, we had no way to go to meet anybody if they didn't ride the bus. We did
Went
go
to
to
church,
church
that's
at Singer, you know, and they'd come pick us up off the bus. Well, as you said, 3 drive bus, but we would go on the bus to church at Singer. And then finally they built a little church there in Bankford.
So everybody met on the bus. That's how you met.
No,
You met.
Either that or church, or like he did.
Jimmy rode across the hills in the evening to get their cattle, and he had this song he sang every evening when he went to get the cattle.
What was it?
When the blue moon turns to gold.
Oh.
But anyway, then we married in 45.
And you were 17 when
I
you got
was-
married.
I was 16. I graduated at 16, and I got married 2 days after I graduated in December. In May, I went to business school 2 days after, and I graduated from business school. And 2 days after that, I got married.
So you were 17.
Jimmy was in the Navy, and he came home then, and we got married.
Now, you how old were you when you got married, Uncle?
I was 21.
You waited a long time.
How
He was
And
in the
Mrzelle,
summer.
how old were you when you got married?
I was 16. We got married October the 9th, and I would have been
17.
17, November the 12th.
And how old was you guys as husbands when you guys got married?
Well,
Jimmy
Calvin
was
was
20.
19. He
Jimmy-
was 2 years.
Yeah. We got married the 22nd. Jimmy just turned 20. He was 20 the 11th of December, and we got married 22nd of December.
Okay, so that's probably how it was with you and Aunt Nancy too. She was younger than you, right?
Yeah.
And Earl was in the Navy. And
they
they got married in August, the 22nd of 45, 2 months, well, August to December before we got married.
See, the war was over in 45, and when Calvin was on Okinawa, and so I stayed with Mom and Daddy. And I was there when Lou was born, and I gave Lou her first bath.
Oh.
We did have a doctor come down.
But she was born before you got there. Remember, Daddy was out in the...
He was there, the doctor was there.
Well,
But
I
Daddy
was
came,
too, but I don't remember.
Daddy came in and he said we had a lady that kind of like midwife, you know, and they'd gone to get her. We were sitting in the kitchen. Dad says, "Get in there. You're the sorriest damn help I've ever seen." We got in there and I got to do the baby, and I didn't know a thing about that. But I gave her her first bath.
Oh, good.
And she was born in 46, April of 46.
You know, you were talking about marrying people right around close in your neighborhood. When you think about it, there's about 4 of us that married people not 3 miles away from where we live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's 5 of us that have 50 years in.
We stayed married anyway.
And then I lost
I
my
suppose the
husband.
rest, there's 2 more of them that, unless they kill each other, probably.
So you've been married how long? We were married 59 years
Oh,
when
wow.
Calvin died.
We were married 54 years when Jimmy died. We would have been married 60 years this year, this past December. And then Mrzelle, I lost Jimmy in 99, and Mrzelle, I was the first one to lose out of the 9. I was the first one to lose a spouse. And then Mrzelle lost Calvin in
November 2001.
2001.
Yeah.
So we've been like glued to each other since then.
So out of the 9, you know, Faye died.
Right.
She was 42.
Ooh.
But out there's still 8 living. And he's 82. I'm 80. And she's 78.
That's pretty old.
Yeah.
A lot of years.
Yeah, it's a lot
Yeah.
of years.
Lou and Linda said they got to thinking about it, and they got worried because we were getting old, and they had not thought how old we really were
Yeah.
till they were around us, I guess, and see how feeble we are sometimes. But
Anyway, we were happy. We just fought and carried on, weren't we?
Yeah.
And we love each other today. We just
Yeah,
do
I
anything
think-
for each other.
I think we probably had more love than most people with all the fighting and bickering and the obstacles we had to overcome. we
Who were the kids in the cornfield standing behind your dad in that one picture?
the what?
Two-
That was Junior. And
Oh, that was Junior
Linda.
and Linda, I believe, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
You mean in the film?
Yeah, your
in the
dad
video?
was standing, getting his picture taken. There were two kids
And
standing in the
back
spot.
in the corn.
It's Junior
Yeah,
and
that
Mom.
was Linda and
Yeah.
Junior.
But Earl's job was to get in wood because we had a house with L-shaped, fireplace on one end, and the stove, the kitchen stove, was a wood stove. And at that time, which they don't do anymore, we got up and fixed coffee for Daddy and Mama and took to them. We made the coffee, didn't we, Earl?
Yeah.
Lit the fire.
We
And
lit the fire
made
in the
the fire.
fireplace and the other one when it was
And
cold.
give
But
Cows
Earl
before
would
we went to
never
school.
bring the wood in.
He would
He
never
would
bring
never
it
bring
in.
the wood in.
I don't remember
Daddy'd
that,
have to
but
get up and make him go get some wood for the fireplace.
So when did the butane truck thing come in?
We didn't. I don't think we had butane when I
About,
left home.
I would think that would probably have been about 46, 45 or 46.
Well, that
it was pretty close to the time when we came back,
Yeah,
you
that'd
know,
be
out of the
46.
service.
That-
They got electricity and you know, had a well pump or something to pump their water and a washing machine.
But Daddy was
They had
driving.
an old gasoline Dexter 2-tub, wasn't it? That they wash with.
we did have kerosene. We had a kerosene stove.
That we had to throw out the back door a few times when it caught on fire.
Oh, but we did have ice cubes once a day. You remember the first ice box we had? You put water in the top and kerosene in the bottom, and it would make ice one time a day.
One
we
time a day.
thought we were rich.
But Uncle Bill used to deliver ice, and we had one of those ice boxes that you put ice in. So Uncle Bill delivered ice to us.
Oh, okay.
Well, that old
But
refrigerator
girl.
was the
This is
first
Riley.
one
This is Tammy's.
anybody had ever
Oh, she's
saw.
in his little.
Grandpa bought that old refrigerator, and that was the first one in the country. And of course, everybody in the neighborhood was trying to figure out how to run it, you know, make it work. And,
Riley, go give Grandpa a hug. Go give him a
hey,
Is that about enough for you more than anything?
Do you guys want to take a break?
Yeah.
hug.
Let's do
And
that.
they have company too.
Okay.
Too, so.
Who is
Oh,
that
cute.
little girl?
That's awesome.
that